Didn't want to read it, receiving it from the Catholics. Mine couldn't conceive it, believing it from the Baptists. The Hebrews wasn't white, so they running all out of actors. Searching through the chapters and seeing they got it backwards. Kindly tell the truth and the rage in them only escalated. Every word they hated, but none want to debate it. So what I'm supposed to do? Let them fake it until they make it. Nah, bowing to the idols, my power's bowing to take them down. Non-believers smoking while Christians drinking the potion. Everybody's high on that lie when the demons spoken. Alive on arrival with bruise we all awoke with. Vision kinda blurry, he's realigning the focus. Gotta tell the truth and confuse the room or it clears it out. Peers don't wanna hear, so I'm filled with a lot of fears and doubts. You gave me the heart, so it's time to put the action in. Praises that I give you on earth will only be practiced.
If the truth is what you see, then there's no need to look further than the words written on stone. Find it grace when you believe the body of the one without sin being hung on the cross, living the life that you should lead. Thankful every day that I live and bring tears, giving praise to the Most High. Giving praise to the Most High. To the Most High.
Right, all right. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Hopefully, switch something real quick. All right. So, if I can be seen and heard, someone please put a 1 in the comments real quick.
Be seen and heard. Someone please put a 1 in the comments. And I didn't get to set it up, but go ahead and get Ezekiel chapter 20 for devotion. Let's do that. Slide this over here. All right. So I'm good over on Facebook land. All right. Shabbat shalom, brother Romeo. Shabbat shalom, Akira. Shabbat shalom, brother Chick. Good to see y'all. All right, so let's get into it. And as y'all know, you know what I'm saying, we had to go through last week's Bible study as a prerequisite to this one because of all of the lunar Sabbath talking and, you know, all of the confusion that was going forward. You know, we had to bring it out and basically make a couple of things clear before proceeding. So, you know what I'm saying, never mind that. We're past that. We can go ahead and get into the Bible study lessons and, you know what I'm saying, pertaining to the Sabbath day. And I know a lot of this is conversation that we've had, you know, those of us who have been around this ministry for a while. But there is still some who are new to their awakening. They're new to keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Therefore, they're new to the Sabbath. And we have to make things clear. All right. Got to make it clear. It's not our word. That's first. But we have to make things clear for those, like I like to say, in the back. All right, so let's go ahead and get it. Ezekiel chapter 20, starting at the first verse. We're going to read this for devotion before getting into the lesson. All right. And two, I apologize. I didn't have time to convert my Google slides into PowerPoint. So we're just going to have to go back to Google for that. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. All right, Ezekiel chapter 20, starting at verse 1. It says, and it came to be in the 7th year, in the 5th month, on the 10th of the new moon. All right, killed that whole argument from last week with that verse. It says that certain of the elders of Israel came to inquire of Yahweh and sat before me. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, speak to the elders of Israel and say to them, thus said the master Yahweh, have you come to inquire of me? As I live, I am not being inquired of by you, declares the master Yahweh. Judge them, son of man, judge them. Make known to them the abominations of their fathers. And you shall say to them, thus said the master Yahweh, on the day when I chose Israel and lifted my hand and an oath to the seed of the house of Jacob, and made myself known to them in the land of Mizraim, I lifted my hand and an oath to them, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim. On that day I lifted my hand and an oath to them, to bring them out of the land of Mizraim, into a land that I had searched out for them, flowing with milk and honey, the splendor of all lands. And I said to them, each one of you, throw away the abominations which are before his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with idols of Mizraim. I am Yahweh your Elohim. But they rebelled against me and would not obey me. All of them did not throw away the abominations which were before their eyes, nor did they forsake the idols of Mizraim. So I resolved to pour out my wrath on them to complete my displeasure against them in the midst of the land of Egypt, Mishra. But I acted in my namesake, that it should not be profaned before the eyes of the nations among whom they were, before whose eyes I made myself known to them, to bring them out of the land of Mizraim. So I took them out of the land of Mizraim, and I brought them into the wilderness, and I gave them my laws, and showed them my right rulings, which if a man does, he shall live by them. And I also gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between them and me, to know that I am Yahweh who sets them apart. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness, and they did not walk in my laws, and they rejected my right rulings, which if a man does, he shall live by them. And they greatly profaned my Sabbaths. Then I said, I will pour out my wrath on them in the wilderness and consume them. But I acted for my name's sake, not to profane it before the nations, before whose eyes I had brought them out. And I myself also lifted my hand in an oath to them in the wilderness, not to bring them into the land which I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, the splendor of all lands, because they rejected my right rulings and did not walk in my laws, and they profaned my Sabbaths. For their heart went after their gods, and my eye pardoned them from destroying them. And I did not make an end of them in the wilderness. And I said to their children in the wilderness, do not walk in the laws of your fathers, nor observe their rulings, nor defile yourselves with their idols. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Walk in my laws and guard my right rulings and do them. And set apart my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, to know that I am Yahweh your Elohim. But the children rebelled against me. They did not walk in my laws and the right rulings. They did not guard to do them, which if a man does, he shall live by them. They profaned my Sabbaths, so I resolved to pour out my wrath on them to complete my displeasure against them in the wilderness. But I held back my hand and acted for my name's sake, not to profane it before the eyes of the nations, before whose eyes I have brought them out. Also, I myself lifted my hand in an oath to those in the wilderness, to scatter them among the nations and disperse them throughout the lands, because they had done because they had not done my right rulings, and they rejected my laws, and they profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were on their fathers' idols. And I also gave them up to laws that were not good, and judgments which they would not live. Salakia, verse 26. And I defiled them by their own gifts, and they passed all their firstborn through the fire, so that I might stun them, so that they know that I am Yahweh. Therefore, Son of Man, speak to the house of Israel, and you shall say to them, thus said the Master Yahweh, and this your fathers have further reviled me and committing trespass against me. Slakia, by committing trespass against me, when I brought them into the land which I had lifted my hand in an oath to give them. And they saw all the high hills and all the thick trees. They slaughtered their slaughterings there and provoked me with their offerings there. And they sent up their sweet fragrance there and poured out their drink offerings there. And I said to them, what is this high place which you go? So its name is called High Place to this day. Therefore, say to the house of Israel, thus said the Master Yahweh, are you defiling yourselves in the way of your fathers, and do not whore after their abominations? For when you lift up your gift and make your sons pass through the fire, you defile yourselves with all your idols, even to this day. And I shall be inquired of by you, O house of Israel. As I live, declares the Master Yahweh, I am not being inquired by you. And what comes up in your spirit shall never be. When you say, let us be like the nations, like the tribes in other lands, serving wood and stone. As I live, declares the Master Yahweh, do not I, with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, and with wrath poured out, reign over you. And I shall bring you out from the people and gather you out of the lands where you are scattered, with a mighty hand, and with an outstretched arm, and with wrath poured out. And I shall bring you into the wilderness of the people, and I shall enter into judgment with you face to face there. As I entered into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness of the land, in the land of Egypt, so shall I enter into judgment with you, declares the Master Yahweh. And I shall make you pass under the rod, and shall bring you into the bond of the covenant, and purge the rebels from among you, and those who transgress against me. From the land there, from the land where they sojourn, I bring them out. But they shall not come into the land of Israel, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. As for you, O house of Israel, thus said the Master Yahweh, go, serve each of you his idol, and afterward, if you are not listening to me, but do not profane my set apart name anymore with your gifts and your idols. For on my set apart mountain, on the mountain height of Israel, declares the Master Yahweh, there all the house of Israel, all of them in the land, shall serve me. There I shall accept them, and there I shall require of their offerings and the first fruits of their offerings, together with all your set apart gifts, as a sweet fragrance. I shall accept you when I bring you out from the people. And I shall gather you out of the lands where you have been scattered, and I shall be set apart in you before the nations. It's a lot of reading. Verse 42. And you shall know that I am Yahweh when I bring you into the land of Israel, into the land for which I lifted my hand in an oath to give your fathers. And there you shall remember your ways and all your deeds which you were defiled. And you shall loathe yourselves in your own sight because of all the evils that you did. And you shall know that I am Yahweh when I have dealt with you for my name's sake, not according to your evil ways, nor according to your corrupt deeds. O house of Israel, declares the Master Yahweh. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face towards the south, and drop word against the south, and prophesy against the forest land, the south. Right? Verse 47, and you shall say to the forest of the south, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus said the Master Yahweh, see, I am kindling a fire in you, and it shall devour every green tree and every dry tree in you. The blazing flame is not quenched, and it shall burn all faces from the south to the north. And all the flesh shall see that I, Yahweh, have kindled it. It is not quenched. And I said, Master Yahweh, they are saying of me, he is not speaking parables. Salakia. All right, so the Most High's word is already blessed. That was a lot of reading, but you know what I'm saying, well worth it, because it's on point with the topic at hand. All right, it is on point with the topic at hand. Hopefully I got let me slide that into slide form. All right, I haven't worked with Google Slides in a while, so you know what I'm saying, it's gonna be interesting, but we're gonna get through it. Why we honor the Sabbath day. All right, and this message has always been not to be contentious towards our brethren who say you can't keep the laws in captivity, you can't keep the Sabbath in captivity, so on and so forth. Those not the arguments we finna have with folk. You know what I'm saying? That's your conviction. That's your conviction. You know what I'm saying? We just read in Ezekiel chapter 20 how the Most High emphasized the importance of the Sabbath. One of the things that we like to stretch and bring forward is the fact that it should become important to you, the things that are important to the Most High. So that's why we read Ezekiel chapter 20 to bring forth the point that the Sabbath is, you know what I'm saying, very important to the Most High. But we're not going to stay there. Let's get into it. We're talking about, in contrast, the Sunday worship, right? We're not dealing with them. The Sabbath, all right, the Bible says it is the seventh day of the week, according to Genesis 2:2, that the Most High rested on it, blessed it, sanctified it. You know what I'm saying? In verse 3, he says, Elohim said to remember it and to keep it set apart, Exodus 20:8. All right, blessed is the man that keeps it, Isaiah 56:2. Right, it says it is a sin not to keep it set apart. 1 John chapter 3, verse 4, he who sins transgresses also the law. Right, grace does not give permission to break it. Romans 6:15 says it is the Most High's day. Matthew 12:8. Yahweh Shai said it was made for man. Right, that's why we know that when he rested on the seventh day, it was the day after he made Adam. Okay. All right, it is just as important as the other commandments, James 2:10. All right, it is a sign between Elohim and his people, as we just read in verse 12 of Ezekiel 20. It says, Yahweh Shai worshiped on it. All right, Luke 4:16. The early so-called Christians worshiped on it, Acts 17:2, 18:4. Everybody in the Most High's kingdom will worship on it. All right, Isaiah 66:23. All right, those are points that we constantly make. All right, so the title, seek ye first the kingdom of Yah and all of whose righteousness? Yours. All right, your grandmamas, the things that we were raised up in church. No, seek ye first the kingdom of Yah and all of his righteousness. The things that he says is righteous is the things we're supposed to be doing. All right. So let's keep it moving. Summary. All right. We read last week, all right, about the establishing of the Sabbath. Not only did we read about the establishing of the Sabbath, you know what I'm saying? We made easy work of that lunar Sabbath doctrine, so on and so forth, right? Now we want to look at those who kept the Sabbath day set apart in the New Testament and after, all right? And you know what I'm saying, who changed it and why. And we'll get we'll skim through a lot of that because we did go through that a couple Sabbaths ago, right? For those of you who remember, right? So anybody telling you to worship on Sunday, right? This is what Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 20 is addressing. So let's deal with it. There is no light in them. Pastor Porkchop, there's no light in him. All right. The deacons, the deaconess, all of these people, you know what I mean, who are you know what I'm saying, showing up on Sunday, you know what I'm saying, telling you that that's the Lord's day. There is no light in them, according to Isaiah 8 and 20. It says, to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word. First of all, what is it talking about, right? They read this, they skim past it, or, you know what I'm saying, they don't really consider what they're reading when they read this. It says to the law, it's talking about the Torah, and the testimony, that's talking about the prophets, the same thing that Christ said that he came not to destroy, but to fulfill, right? Says to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them, right? They get away with not speaking according to this word because all they do is read the scripture and they rap for what, 45 minutes to an hour. It is what it is. All right. So somebody made the argument last week that you know, Saturday is not in the Bible. We know Saturday is not in the Bible. Neither is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? So, you know what I'm saying? They make that a point of contention, right? It shouldn't be. I mean, if you can look at Sunday as day one and then start counting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, it's still that same 7-day cycle. But I'm not going to go back to last week's message. Let's keep it moving. Exodus chapter 23 and verse 19, it says, we were tricked into breaking the commands of the Most High of not speaking the names of other gods simply by calling on the days of the week. Now, how many remember the Most High said, don't even mention, you know what I'm saying, the names of these guys. Don't let them be in your mouth, right? Well, we were tricked when they taught us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to get into, you know what I'm saying, the English words for each day, all right? Because the English words for each day bear remnants of Roman tradition, but they have been filtered through centuries of Germanic and Norse mythology. How many of you knew that? I mean, the first day, Sunday, should be common sense, right? It has it in there, Sun's day, right? Sunning-dag, that's the Norse or the Old English, right? Sunday comes from the Old English sunning-dag, right? Which is derived from the Germanic interpretation of the Latin dies solis, sun's day, all right? Germanic and Norse mythology personified the sun as a goddess named Suna, all right, or Sol. So when they show up on worship, they show up to worship on Sunday and think it's not a big deal. All of that is the origin of that day of worship. You know what I'm saying? It's stupid and it's paganness, right? And it's foolishness. All right. So going along with the Sunday, can you imagine what the next day would be? Sunday, the moon's day, Monday. Right? In Old English, it's called Monendag, the moon's day. Like Monday, likewise, comes from the Old English Monendag, all right, named after Mani, the Norse personification of the moon, all right, and it's also Sol's brother, Sol being the sun. Tuesday, how many of you know what Tuesday comes from? The name Tuesday comes from Tewigsdag. Now, if you play games like what's the game called, Manny? God of War. You know what I'm saying? Things of that nature, and you'll be familiar with these North mythology characters, so on and so forth. But Tewigsdag is Tyr. Tyr is the brother of Odin. All right. Tyr's Day. So Tuesday comes from Tyr's Day. Tuesday comes from the Old English Tewigsdag after Tyr, the one-handed Norse god of dueling. right? He is what they call the original god of war. All right, he is equated with Mars, the Roman war god. Right. And this is just a couple of old English pictures of, these gods that they used to worship. And let's get into it. Wednesday, y'all know who this one, right? This is Woden or Odin. Woden's dad. And y'all know that Woden or Odin is Thor's dad, right? Odin's day. Wednesday is Woden's day. Woden or Odin was the ruler of the Norse gods realm and associated with wisdom, magic, victory, and death, right? And we see him with the one eye and the crows. You'll get all of that if you watch movies like the Avengers. You know what I'm saying? All of these characters that people, make light of, people actually worship, right? These were actual gods. So, this whole Christian religion, when they like to say that it plagiarizes this and it plagiarizes that, no, you have to understand that these people basically are worshiping the same thing they were worshiping in Babylon, all right? And then the same thing they were worshiping in Greece and Rome, but they just changed the name, right? So when you show up on Sunday, you still worshiping that same thing with a different name, all right? So let's deal with it. Thursday. You know what Thursday is. We talked about Tyr and Woden, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, Thursday is Thor's day, right? Thunesdag, right? It says Thursday gets its English name after the hammer-wielding Norse god of thunder, all right? Strength and protection, right? So they make light of his character, you know what I'm saying? They make him a fool and an idiot on the Marvel movies, and it is what it is. It's all like this big comedy thing now. And that's also, you'll make light of the fact that that's an actual deity that they worship. All right. Friday. How many of y'all know who Friday is? Oh, Friday is named after. Friday would be named after Odin's wife, Frigga. All right. In Old English, is Frigga's dag. Right. Friday is named after the wife of Odin. Some scholars say her name was Frigg, others say Freya, but that's where you get your Friday from, right? And some old pictures of her, so on and so forth. And Saturday takes a different trip. Like they don't name them after their Norse gods or whatever. Saturn is Dag. That's how they talk in Old English, right? It's named after the god of Saturn, right? As for Saturday, Germanic and Norse traditions didn't assign any of their gods to this day of the week. They retained the Roman name instead. The English word Saturday comes from the Anglo-Saxon word Saturnesdag, right? Which translates to Saturn's day. So all of these days that we talk about belong to somebody. In other words, they gave them to somebody. Now back to the topic at hand. Let's not get off the beaten path. All right. When did people start keeping the Sabbath day? Was it at creation? Was it at Mount Sinai? Right? Was it Israel? I had a sister in the comments say, they didn't start keeping the Sabbath until till Moses led them out of Egypt. Right? Well, that's some people's conviction, but let's get into it. The Sabbath before Moses. There was a Sabbath that took place before Moses. Looking at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27, it says, Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Male and female, he created them, right? And Elohim, right, in verse 31, jump down to verse 31. Elohim saw that all he had made, and see, it was very good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the sixth day, right? That's after the Most High created everything. And then Genesis 2 and 1, it says, thus the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their array, right? And the seventh day, Elohim completed his work which he had done. He rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim blessed the seventh day and set it apart, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim in creating had made. Right? So why was the Sabbath day made? Well, let's get that. We dealt with this when we were dealing with the last week's study, but let's just jump back into it. Mark chapter 2 and verse 27, it says, and he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, right? And that just common sense tells you, like, if he made Adam on the second day, on the sixth day, it's telling you that the Sabbath was made for Adam, right? It says, and then that's just, you know what I'm saying, breaking down the Greek equivalent of the man, so on and so forth. And that's actually talking about Adam, right? So the Most High made the Sabbath for Adam. This is the Sabbath before Moses, right? And then getting back into the argument we made in Genesis 5 and 24, talking about Enoch. Enoch walked with Elohim, right? And then he was no more, for Elohim took him. All right, what does walk with Elohim means? All right, we get that in Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 24. It says, the steps of a man are what? From Yahweh. What does a man know about his own way? So the common sense would be, okay, if Enoch was walking with Elohim, he had to, you know what I'm saying, get direction from Elohim to please Elohim, right? The steps of a man are from Elohim, right? What does a man know about his own way? If Enoch was doing his own thing, there was no way he would be able to please Elohim, would be the common sense. Right, still issuing the argument for the Sabbath being before Moses. Enoch had to have kept the Sabbath. By belief, it says Enoch was translated. Jumping to Hebrews 11 and 5. It says he was translated so as not to see death, and was not found because Elohim had translated him. For before his translation, he obtained witness. He pleased Elohim. Right? That, oh, God. Let me take myself off of here real quick. He pleased Elohim. Right? So what does that tell us? Something that we already should know, right? Right? You have to, that's the same thing when we tell people that today. You have to find out what the Most High loves and what he hates, right? And get in line accordingly. Don't do things that he hates and think that he, you know what I mean? You're on the right side of things. All right, let's just get into the case of Noah. Noah says in Genesis chapter 6 and 8, it says, but Noah found favor in the eyes of Yahweh, right? It says, this is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with Elohim. So that same argument of walking with Elohim and and Elohim ordering your steps, all right, giving you, you know what I'm saying, direction, all right, and telling you, you know what I'm saying, what to do, so on and so forth. It's telling you that Noah was one just like Enoch. Anyways, let's get 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 5 real quick. It says, and did not spare the word of old, but preserved Noah, a proclaimer of righteousness, and 7 others, bringing in the flood on the world of the wicked. Now, okay, it says that he was a proclaimer of righteousness. That proclaimer means preacher. He was preaching, right, to the people, and they didn't want to listen. So the preacher of righteousness was Noah, and the world of the wicked was those who were ignoring Noah. Noah had to have something to preach, right? And the first law that we saw in Genesis chapter 2 and 1 was what? The Sabbath day. They had to been keeping the Sabbath day. Genesis chapter 26 and 4 says, and I shall increase your seed like the stars of heavens, and I shall give all these lands to your seed. And in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Right? Genesis 26 and 4 says, because Abraham did what? Obeyed my voice and guarded my charge, my commands, my laws, and my Torah. So people would make the argument that the Torah didn't come about until Moses on Mount Sinai. If that was the case, there was no way that Abraham would be able to obey the Most High's voice, guard his charge, keep his commandments, his laws, and his Torah. All of those things, even though the Bible does not explicitly say, you know what I'm saying, the Most High gave Abraham these laws, Enoch these laws, or Noah these laws, so on and so forth. It doesn't expressly say that. And it doesn't expressly say the same thing about Cain and Abel in the garden, but they were still given instructions on how to sacrifice to the Most High, right? Just because it doesn't expressly say it, we already know common sense wise that Most High had his laws established before Moses and Mount Sinai, right? Should be a common sense. It shouldn't be something to argue, but people, you know what I'm saying, they love it. They like it, I love it. Exodus chapter 16 and verse 4 says, and Yahweh says to Moshe, see, I am raining bread from the heavens for you, right? And the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day in order to try them, whether they walk in my Torah or not, right? So he's trying them to see if they're walking his Torah, his law that already existed, the law that Abraham already kept, the law that Enoch kept, the law that Noah kept. He wants to see if they're going to keep it. Why hadn't they been keeping it? Maybe they were in Egypt, you know what I'm saying, for 230 years, right? Not so-called 430 years, but about 200 and how many years was that? I forget. But if you go back into the Bible study where we broke down the prophecy of them coming out of Egypt, it was not no 430 years, right? But anyways, well, that's another subject for another day. Anyways, they were keeping the he tried them to see whether they would keep his Torah or not, right? And how did he test them with the Torah? The first thing he tested them with, as far as to see if they would keep the Torah, was the Sabbath, right? The Sabbath was one of those things that the Most High made clear in the beginning. This was important, right? That's why it was important to start off with Ezekiel chapter 20, right? And read, how the Most High felt about that. But anyway, let's get back to it. Let's look at verse 5. It says, "And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily." Why do they gather twice as much on the 6th day? Because he's teaching them, he's getting them to remember the Sabbath day, right? Even when you look in the Decalogue, and you look in the 10 Commandments, when you get to the 4th commandment, he tells you to remember the Sabbath. Why would they have to remember it? Because they were in captivity, they were in bondage, they were in slavery in Egypt, and they were not allowed to keep it, right? And what do you do what do generations do all the time? They degenerate, right? They denigrate, they grow weaker and weaker, in obedience to the Most High. We see that over and over. As a matter of fact, when you go into Ezekiel chapter 20, that's exactly what the Most High was addressing. He said, when I bring you into this new land, don't do what your fathers did. Don't look at the idols your fathers worship, so on and so forth. He says, and honor my Sabbath days. It's important to the Most High, right? Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 27, right? It came to be that some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather, but they found none. Wasn't there, right? It says, and it came to be that some of the people went out on the 7th day and to gather and found none. And Yahweh said to Moses, "How long shall you refuse to guard my commands and my Torah?" Right? This is before he went up to the mountain. Okay. He says, "See, because Yahweh has given you the Sabbath, therefore he has given you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Let each one stay in his place. Do not let anyone go out of this place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day, right? Mind you that it was all done before Moses received the 10 Commandments. Right. All right. So the Sabbath now given by tablets. We get into Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. He says, "Remember the Sabbath to set it apart." Right. He's not establishing the Sabbath for the first time for them. He's telling them to remember it. This is something that was in practice before they went into captivity. 6 days you labor and shall do your work. Right. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the 7th day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart. Now that's what's really important for folks to consider when we're talking about somehow Noah, being able to preach righteousness. What would he have to preach? We would already know that this would be one of them. Why? Because it says, "Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and he set it apart." So there's no way if he set it apart, Noah is going to be blaspheming or working or doing, profaning the Sabbath. It is, come on. Deuteronomy 5 and 12, it says, "Keep the Sabbath day to what? Sanctify it." What does that word sanctify mean? Kodash. It means to set it apart. As Yahweh, thy Elohim, has commanded thee. Kodash means to set apart, right? And it's funny, we went through churchianity using the word holy and not really knowing what it meant. We know it meant some kind of pious or something special, but we didn't really know how to put it in proper context when reading. The church was able to pull all kinds of wool over our eyes and so on and so forth. But anyways, let's get back to it. Deuteronomy 5 and 15. It says, "And you shall what? Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt," all right? "And that Yahweh, your Elohim, brought you out of there by a strong hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore, Yahweh, your Elohim, commanded you to perform the Sabbath day," right? He commanded you to perform the Sabbath day, right? He says, "Thus the command to remember the Sabbath," right? It wasn't an establishing of the Sabbath. It was for them to come back into it. And it's the same thing with us going through Jim Crow, going through slavery, going through having our identity taken away from us, our name stolen, our history erased. and that was finding ourselves following the Most High again, right? What is the one thing that He tells us to do? To remember the Sabbath day. That's the same thing we're doing now, so it shouldn't be so hard, as you know what I'm saying, to imagine them doing it coming out of Egypt, right? Shouldn't, but for some folks it is. It is what it is. When will it end? When will the Sabbath end? When will we be done keeping the Sabbath? Let's get Matthew chapter 5, right? Because we know in verse 17 he tells us, or Yahushua tells us, I have not come to destroy the law, you know what I'm saying, or the prophets, I have not come to destroy but to fulfill, right? And then, pastors like to spin that the wrong way. But anyways, let's get to it. He says, for truly I say to you, verse 18, till heaven and earth pass, one jot, one tittle shall by no means pass from the Torah till all be fulfilled, right? So we can look outside, we can still see the heaven and earth is still, performing. It has not passed, right? So the Torah is still in effect, is what Christ is saying. So anybody that's telling you that the laws are done away with and, come to church on Sunday with us, these people are not for you. These people are actually calling Christ a liar right here. But anyways, when will it end? When heaven and earth pass? That's the question. That's the answer. Let's look at Isaiah 58, looking at verses 13 and 14, right? Now, this is what's important to those of you who are coming back to your identity, understanding that you are the Most High's chosen, you are the apple of His eye, right? And you're getting back into keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Let's get Isaiah 58, 13 and 14 real quick, right? This is what he says. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my set apart day, right? And call the Sabbath a delight, the set apart of the Most High, honorable, and shall honor Him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, right? Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Most High, right? It's until you come back to keeping these law, statutes, and commandments, and until you come back to keeping His Sabbath day, that's when you can delight yourself in the Most High. If you don't want to honor the Sabbath day and keep it set apart, right? And as many examples as the Most High has given and as clear as He made it, and you still don't, and you still want to do you, okay, on His set apart day, right? Then you might as well just, not say nothing bad about the Sunday Christian. It is what it is. You're in the same boat, right? So let's get back and let's see who the villains are, right? Why haven't the Sabbath day taken a firm hold that it should, right? When the Bible is so expressive and explicit, all right, and direct about keeping it. Why hasn't it taken place? Why haven't it convicted those who are eager and earnest to serve the Most High? Why hasn't it afflicted their soul to keep the Sabbath, right? The main characters will be Emperor Constantine, the Roman Catholic Church, all right? Then you got the Black Church, and then you got the Black Christian, right? The same church folks who be like, I can do all things in Christ, which strengthens me, right? But then when you tell them to remember the Sabbath day, like, can't nobody keep all them laws. That's a true story. It's sad, but it is what it is, right? Emperor Constantine instituted leaving, honoring the Sabbath day for his pagan sun worship, right? The Roman Catholics politicized Christianity and controls the world through the misinterpreted information of the Bible, right? Baby Catholics, the Black churches, baby Catholics who buffer the true Israelites from knowing their true identity, teach the traditions and doctrines of men as blind leaders of the blind, leading Yah's chosen people into the ditch of hellfire and also being human shields for white supremacy. Give white folks back their religion, right? And then you, so-called Christian, suffering from post-traumatic slave syndrome, and to add short-term memory loss, all right? You go to church every pagan day celebrating pagan deities and holidays and think that you still have a heaven to look forward to. No, you have you're looking for well done, but you're going to get I never knew you. You don't get back into keeping the Sabbath day, all right? I said I was going to breeze through this part because we already know about the whole changing of the Sabbath day, but we'll just read a few, and then move on. All right, where did it happen? In Rome, all right? Daniel 7:25 talks about, and he shall speak great words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High and think to change times and laws, right? It was prophesied that this thing was going to happen, but people ignored the fact that, Emperor Constantine and the Catholic Church did exactly what Daniel 7 and 25 said they was going to do. All right. So how about when? All right, 321 current era. All right, Emperor Constantine published Video de Milano, or the Edict of Milano, right? And the Edict of Milano, Constantine stated that the worship day was to become Sunday, which had nothing to do with the worship of the Most High, but was about worshiping their pagan sun god Apollo or Helios. All right. And then we dealt with this. Who changed the Sabbath to Sunday? The devil's in the details, talking about the Roman Catholic Church. You know what I'm saying? And they admit to it. All right. When you let them finish their thought, you ask them what scripture is that. All right. Let's get into some New Testament precepts real quick. Oh yeah, I was going to stay there for a second, but I have to get into this conversation, right? Because we dealt with Ezekiel 20. All right. I have to deal with what we're supposed to do on the Sabbath. Oh, my bad, y'all. I thought I shared a slide. All right, the Sabbath. What is the Sabbath? Sabbath is a sign between Yah and his people. All right, so why do we celebrate the Sabbath? I think we answered that question in the last slide. But for those who are new, they need to know, what are they supposed to do on the Sabbath? Or what are they supposed to refrain from doing on the Sabbath? All right. Those who want the truth, there's two different people who read the Bible. We know this. Those who want the truth, allowing the scriptures to speak for itself, and you have those who want validation, seeking to justify what they already believe. All right. But as for us, we chilling on the Sabbath. Start. What were we taught? Right. Millions of people presume to worship the Heavenly Father on what they think is the Sabbath day, even while ignoring the part about resting from work. Y'all remember that time we came home from church and they were teaching on the Sabbath? And I told Akira, I was like, Akira, get in there and wash those dishes. She was like, Dad, you're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. I was like, who told you the day was the Sabbath? Church and lied to my baby, told her that Sunday was the Sabbath. Anyways, let's get back to it. Relatively few, however, have come to the truth of the real Sabbath day commanded in the scriptures. They completely miss the significance and impact of what the true seventh-day Sabbath tells us regarding true worship. No other biblical observances carries the weight and consequence of the seventh-day Sabbath. As we will see, the Sabbath identifies true worshipers and separates them from nominal worship, right? So the Sabbath, given that creation, given at Sinai, kept by his people, honored by the disciples, sign of Yah's power, and will be kept in the new earth, right? Anyways, the Sabbath, what is it? The Sabbath is a day of rest, a day of worship, a day of fellowship, a day of rejoicing, a day of meditation. As special days goes, the Sabbath has more profound implications than any other. For Yah's people, there is no more important a day than the Sabbath, because it is the link that identifies them with the Father, right? That's why he said this is the sign between me and you. It is a day in which a person can escape the cares of this world and meditate on Yahweh's word, right? From the beginning, Yahweh created and set aside the Sabbath as a unique day of honor to him, right? On the seventh day, Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work which he had made. And Elohim blessed the seventh day and set it apart. Because that, and he rested from all his work which Elohim created and made. Genesis 2:2-3, right? Yahweh spent 6 days creating and restoring the heavens and the earth, and then rested on the seventh day. When we rest on Yahweh's Sabbath, we are honoring him by what he did himself on the seventh day, by resting. Get somewhere and sat down. Ezekiel 20 and verse 12, right? Which we just read, right? Because all I said was the Sabbath wasn't on Sunday. All right, folks upset, right? The weekly Sabbath, along with the annual Sabbaths, right? And we went through the different wording of the Sabbath. We have Sabbath, Sabbath one. We have Sabbath. Anyways, let's get to it. The weekly Sabbath, along with the annual Sabbaths, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Weeks, Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles, the last great day, so on and so forth. All right. It says is a sign between Yahweh and his people. Right. The Sabbath are distinguishing marks of Yahweh's chosen anciently and today. Right. It's the marker that says who you are. That's what he established the Sabbath for. He says, here is the Sabbath instructions from Yah. In Exodus chapter 31, verses 13-14, it says, speak also to the children of Israel, saying, verily my Sabbath you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations. So how long is that? throughout your generations. It says that you may know that I am Yahweh that does what? Sanctify you. The Most High sets them apart. And then we'll read in Isaiah 66, where the folks were setting themselves apart, eating swine's flesh and so on and so forth. But it is what it is. He says, you shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is set apart unto you. Everyone that defiles the Sabbath shall surely be put to death. For whosoever does any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people, right? Exodus 31, 13 through 14, right? So what's the significance? Then you have to ask, what's the consequence? It is important to recognize that no other command holds such profound significance while invoking serious consequences for defilement, right? I don't know why it's a light and easy thing for the Sunday church, person to profane the Sabbath. It says in a similar way, Yahweh's name is also unique. While the Sabbath is a sign of his people, Yahweh's name is the seal that will bind them in the great tribulation, right? Revelation 7:3, 14:1, 22:4. Okay, we went there before, and we'll visit that again for the new folk. All right. As with the Sabbath, there is no substitute for this seal. Yahweh has put but one name, not many. Right? Philippians 2:9. What we got? I was cool with Sunday church until I opened my Bible and found out it wasn't in there. Right? And that's how your attitude used to be with a lot of things that you find out through churchianity and Pastor Pork Chop ain't in there. Right? Leave it alone. So the first thing we're supposed to do on the Sabbath day is what? Rest. The word Sabbath is from the Hebrew Shabbat or Shabbath, which means to repose or to desist from exertion. All right. The Sabbath is above all a day of complete rest, both from your occupation and earning a living and from any activity that will cause physical exertion and draw us away from the purpose of this day. It is a day to be spent exclusively honoring Yah, right, and his son. Therefore, anything that detracts from this purpose should be avoided on the seventh day, right? I need a drink, sorry. All right, so what to do on the Sabbath? Let's get back to it. All right. Is Exodus chapter 20, looking at verses 8 through 11. You know what I'm saying? That's why we read it, so we won't have to keep reading it. But anyways, it says Yahweh has given several specific regulations for the Sabbath. Right? The Ten Commandments form a summary of Yah's moral law, with the fourth one detailing specifically what Yah expects for the Sabbath. Right? He forbids his people from doing any work and to remember that it was he who blessed and sanctified this day for mankind. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it set apart. 6 days shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Shabbat, a rest day, right? To Yahweh your Elohim. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant, nor your animals, nor the alien within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart, right? The fourth commandment sets the Sabbath aside for the entire family to observe, all right, including those under our authority, as in the case of an employee. Nobody in our household or within our borders is exempt from keeping the Sabbath day, right? And an example would be like Chick-fil-A, right? The Chick-fil-A closed on Sunday because they're a Christian organization, right? It would be in that manner. They close their doors so their employees don't have to work. That would be basically what it's saying. You're supposed to do on the Sabbath. It says, nobody in our household or within our borders is exempt from keeping the Sabbath, including the very animals that we own, so that no horse or ox of ours is made to work on this day. A universal prohibition of work underscores the strict sanctity of the Sabbath. The Most High said it, and the Most High means it. All right. And we get some New Testament examples or renewed covenant examples. All right. I use that term New Testament for those who are just walking out of Christianity, don't know no better. But anyways, Leviticus chapter 23, verses 2 through 3. I know that's Old Testament scripture, but let's look at it. It says, Yahweh strongly encourages that we congregate or assemble as a body of believers on his weekly and annual Sabbaths, right? Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be set apart convocations. Even these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh is a Sabbath rest, a set apart convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is a Sabbath of Yahweh in all your dwellings, right? All your dwellings. For those who say, "Well, you can't keep that in bondage, all right, in captivity, in all your dwellings," it says. Anyways, let's keep moving. We find in the New Testament that worship took place on the Sabbath at the synagogue. Yahweh Shai himself, who the world ignorantly knows as Jesus Christ, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath. Okay, we got that in Luke 4 and 16. And we also know Paul did in Acts 17, 1 and 2, 18 and 4. All right. And then in the kingdom, all the people will come to worship Yah when? On the Sabbath day. Isaiah 66 and 23. All right. Can we say then that the Sabbath has no relevance today? How can we? Right. So let's get back into some more examples of what's to be done and, you know what I'm saying, what's to be avoided. My computer wants to do an update. I'm live. All right. Let's get it.
Cooking, commerce, kindling fires.
All right. Besides Yahweh's command to rest and worship on the Sabbath, there are several other statutes that regulate this day. One activity prohibited on the Sabbath is cooking or preparing food. This is why Yah commanded tomorrow is to be a day of rest, a set apart Sabbath to Yah. All right. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep until the morning. Right. So he's basically giving you the same thing on the 6th day. That's the day of preparation. Cook what you're going to cook. Right. Bake what you're going to bake. All of that stuff is to be done on preparation day. Right. And we know that that's from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Right. Well, the day of preparation will be, you know what I'm saying, Thursday to Friday sundown. You get what I'm saying. So to avoid the work intense process of preparing the manna, Yah commanded that the Israelites prepare twice as much of manna on the 6th day, right? Or to gather twice as much on the 6th day. By doing so, they were free to worship Yah on the 7th day. Even though we don't prepare manna, also enjoy modern work-saving conveniences, we continue to observe this statute by preparing all cooked meals prior to the Sabbath. Food can be reheated if necessary, but cooking or baking must be avoided. The prohibition on food preparation is somewhat more relaxed for annual Sabbaths that occur at the beginning or end of feasts, right? And then that gives you the example of a Sabbath wine, you know what I'm saying, in comparison or contrast to a regular Sabbath. Oh yeah, my bad. And you get that in Exodus 12 and 16, right? Anyways, let's get it. A second prohibition would be to abstain from buying and selling on the weekly annual Sabbaths, right? And we got that in the example of Nehemiah, right? In Nehemiah 10 and 31, right? He says, let me start over. A second prohibition would be abstain from buying and selling on the weekly and annual Sabbaths. When the neighboring peoples bring merchandise or grain to sell on the Sabbath, we will not buy from them on the Sabbath or any other holy day or set apart day. Right, we got that in Nehemiah 10:31 and also 13:15 through 21. Right, he says, when the two tribes of Judah and Benjamin were released from Babylonian captivity by the Persians, the Israelites continued life as if they were yet in Babylon. Under Nehemiah, the Israelites were instructed not to buy or sell on the Sabbath. Nehemiah, through Yah's inspiration, understood that the Sabbath was not a day of commerce, but a day of worship and fellowship. This same concept applies to our day and age. The Sabbath for Yah's people today continues to be a day of worship, fellowship, and escape from the world, set apartness, the thing that sets you apart from the world. A person cannot observe the Sabbath and still participate in the world and its activities because the world has no regard for this day and will continue to pollute it, right? That's why the world gives you this day to get all of your shopping done and your partying done and doing you, right? Because you have to work for the rest of the week. That's a setup. It's done on purpose, anyways. The third Sabbath prohibition in Yah's Torah is kindling a fire, right? We get that in Exodus chapter 35, looking at verses 2 and 3. It says, 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day there shall be to you a set apart day, a Sabbath of rest to Yah, right? Whosoever does work therein shall be put to death. You shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day. Right, so put it down. That's why the man that was gathering sticks on the Sabbath day got put down. Right. Anyways, let's keep it moving. When your Christian friends knock on your door Sunday morning and ask you to come to church, don't you understand that Shabbat was yesterday? All right. So in conclusion, I think we made the point. We can get up out of here probably. All right. So in conclusion, we had all these requisites are what? Did I push the? Not bad. All of these requisites are inspired by Yah, all right, and serve to protect the purity and the separateness of the Sabbath day, right? Besides abstaining from work, the Sabbath is also a day of sober and unadulterated thought. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, is what we read in Isaiah 58:13, right? And if you turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure, doing your pleasure, doing what you want to do on his set apart day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the set apart of Yah, honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own pleasure, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. Right? You get that Isaiah 58:13. The Sabbath is a time to be spent focused on Yah and not a time to discuss commonplace. Right? This is a day set apart to study and learn Yah's word. And if Yah commands that a person refrain from commerce, pleasures, and work on the Sabbath and promises death to those who defile it, can that person that ignores it say that they fear the Most High? Great question. Great way to end it too with that question. I'm going to read that again. If Yah commands that a person refrain from commerce, pleasures, and work on the Sabbath and promises death to those who defile it, Pastor Porkchop, can that person that ignores it say that they fear Yah? Right? Now, what is the beginning of wisdom? The fear of Yah is the beginning of wisdom. What is the beginning of knowledge? The fear of Yah is the beginning of knowledge. All of those things have to be in the beginning. You have to find out what the Most High loves and what he hates. And he promises, right? He who profanes his Sabbath, they shall surely be put to death. It is what it is. All right. Cases rest. Shabbat shalom, everybody that came through. Hopefully you got something out of this. I can't hear myself back because I noticed that before when I would talk and I could hear myself back, it would mess up the recording. So it is what it is. But hopefully you got something out of this. The Most High willing, we'll be back next Shabbat with another Shabbat Bible study. And what else did I want to say? No, I think that's pretty much it. I think we do. I think we're good. If you have any questions or whatever, you know what I'm saying, you can always message me, for those of you watching on Facebook or whatever, or leave a comment, so on and so forth. We can discuss this further, but it is what it is. The Most High, he says what he means what he says. That's one of the things that we learned when we came out of the church, was that we had to keep Sabbath, right? And keeping the Sabbath is what really pulled us out of there. You know, we later learned all of the other idol and sun worship things, you know what I'm saying, after we pulled ourselves out of there and started obeying the Most High. So that's what's important. So we'll leave it there. Like I said, the Most High will. We'll be back next Shabbat with another Bible study. But until then, everybody enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. Shabbat shalom, everybody.